Pedram Chalvaheri, name that tune.
You know, I knew it earlier.
Water on Mars.
Oh, the name of the song.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is a perfect segue into what we're actually going to talk about. Because for a very long time there's been a lot of talk that there is in fact water on Mars, but now the Curiosity rover has actually made quite an interesting discovery that there is water there right now.
Yeah.
But it's water, but not as we know it.
Absolutely. And, you know, just like you said, we've seen evidence, pretty clear evidence, that, of course, water existed in dry lake beds, dry river beds, sedimentary layers, things that certainly would indicate that water was there in abundance millions of years ago. And something I'm holding in my hand right here, you kind of take a look at the perspective here. This is what is known as a Moki marble. This is found in southern Utah, what NASA calls...
I thought you got it from Mars.
Mars. Well, you know what? It has iron oxide, which is the same color that Mars comes from. This is precisely what... Absolutely. Take a look. So I can kind of show you some of the images because NASA... Take a look at some of the images that we have. NASA kind of went out to southern Utah and analyzed this, and they looked at these. This is the Mars rover up there, and you see the tracks of the rover. What are Mars blueberries? Same ones they found there. And they looked at these. They looked at this particular image right here coming out of Utah, and they kind of put it in perspective that water processes are the only known way that we know water kind of gave it this spherical shape to these Mars blueberries. Now, what they found in the new study here, and we kind of take a look at the perspective because the report coming out on Monday showing you the conditions across Mars, and we know moisture is prevalent there, and show you these images on the maps here and what we're talking about, what the study revealing, because the Martian sunset, typically, the graph is kind of looking like this. This is actually an image taken on the Mars rover looking at the sunset, kind of eerily similar to what you would see on the surface of the Earth. Some dust in the atmosphere, in the desert landscape, some moisture in the atmosphere as well. The rover has found out that, in this particular rover, it's actually analyzed the humidity and also the air temperature for one full Martian year, equivalent about 2 Earth years. And the observations there is that once the sun sets, the moisture content, which ranges from about 5% humidity in the summer months to up to 100% humidity in the autumn and winter months, that settles down towards the Martian soil. There is plenty of salt in the Martian soil, and that kind of extracts some of the moisture, creates a liquid brine. And because of the high salt content, it is able to keep a liquid form. So now NASA is saying that there is currently a high potential for liquid brine at the surface of the Mars at this very moment, because the salt keeps the freezing temperature much lower so it doesn't freeze with the extreme conditions. Once the sun comes back up on the surface of Mars, that water evaporates once again. So that is a fascinating discovery. You kind of look at the rover there that is, digs the core samples out of the surface of Mars. It also analyzes the air temperatures, and the temperatures in the past 24 hours. The max temperature made it up to -5 Celsius, which is into the 20s Fahrenheit, cooled off to -78 Celsius, which is about 100 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. So very chilly, but the salt content and the particular type of salt is able to keep that liquid form and bring the freezing point much lower.
This is actually getting quite exciting.
It is.
The rover is actually sending back to Earth, and all this, because where there is water, there is life. And all that kind of stuff.
They're saying because the salt content is so high, one thing they're going to have to watch carefully is the structures for future settlements on Mars. It's a highly corrosive salt, so maybe it's something they'll have to look at carefully.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pedram.
Yeah.
A planet of rock and red dust. But it wasn't always like this. Ridges like these in the Martian surface hint that water once flowed here, but just how much was a mystery until now. According to new research from NASA, this is Mars around 4.5 billion years ago, a planet with a vast ocean covering nearly 20% of its surface and as deep as the Mediterranean. Mapping the waters of Mars required data from the red planet itself and even some from right here on Earth.
It's a collection of knowledge of meteoritic records, spacecraft, and ground-based observations that have allowed us to get a very nice picture how water evolved on the planet.
Key to the discovery were measurements of this rare form of water. It contains a heavier form of hydrogen, which prevents the water from leaving the Martian atmosphere and being blown into space. The high concentrations of it found at the Martian poles allowed scientists to calculate how much more water the planet once had. Current estimates show that only 13% of the original Martian water remains on the planet, with most stored as polar ice caps. The rest, like much of Mars's atmosphere, was slowly lost. As well as adding a splash of blue to the red planet, this new data bolsters the idea that Mars may once have teemed with life.
And ultimately we can conclude this idea of an ocean covering 20% of the planet, which opens the idea of habitability and the evolution of life on the planet.
NASA's next Martian rover mission, due to launch in 2020, may finally tell us if there was once life on Mars, one of the many mysteries that the planet still holds. Adam Dunnicky, CNN, London.